people open the Bible, they expect moral lessons, commandments, and stories of faith. What they rarely see is the hidden layer, figures that disturb, confuse, and provoke, archetypes that are not preached on Sunday, but that live in the shadows of Scripture. These are the forbidden archetypes. They reveal the side of the Bible that unsettles both scholars and mystics, because they are not simple morality tales. They are keys to psychology, power, and human nature. Today, let's enter that shadow side and uncover the deeper patterns behind these figures. Let's start with Lilith, the first rebel. Lilith doesn't appear in the standard Genesis narrative. She emerges from the rabbinical texts, the Talmud, and later the Zohar. She is said to have been Adam's first partner before Eve, but refused to submit to him. Instead of obedience, she chose exile. That choice transformed her into a dark feminine archetype, a spirit of the night, associated with storms, sexuality, and infant mortality. For centuries, rabbis wrote protective charms against her, but in esoteric traditions, Lilith becomes something else. She represents the power of autonomy, the refusal to let authority dictate your nature. In Kabbalah, she aligns with the Qliphoth, the shadow side of the tree of life. In feminist readings, she is the suppressed voice of independence that patriarchy tried to erase. Modern parallel. Lilith is the archetype of the woman or individual who chooses freedom over conformity, even at the cost of exile. She raises the question, is the price of independence worth the shadow it brings? Cain, the marked one. Cain is remembered as the first murderer, killing his brother Abel. But in archetypal language, Cain represents the rejected initiate. His sacrifice is not accepted by God. That rejection plants bitterness, leading him into violence. The mark of Cain is not just punishment, but protection, a paradox. He is cursed, but also preserved. Mystics saw this as the archetype of humanity's shadow, envy, ambition, and the desire for recognition that, when twisted, becomes destruction. Kabbalistic texts even associate Cain with the root of magical arts, suggesting that the mark was also a kind of initiation into hidden knowledge. He becomes both cursed and empowered. Modern parallel. Cain is the outsider who feels unseen, who responds with the rage, but he also represents the path of those who seek forbidden knowledge when rejected by mainstream truths. Watchers, forbidden knowledge. In the book of Enoch, the Watchers are angels who descend to earth and teach humanity arts that were considered forbidden. For example, metallurgy, enchantments, astrology. They also take human wives, producing the Nephilim, giants who destabilize the world. The Watchers are archetypes of the fallen teacher. They cross a boundary, give humanity knowledge that accelerates development, but at the cost of corruption. Mystics saw in the Watchers the paradox of initiation. Some knowledge elevates, but without discipline it destroys. Modern parallel. The Watchers embody the archetype of technology. Knowledge given too quickly, without ethical foundation, becomes both advancement and downfall. It's the same question we face with artificial intelligence and biotechnology. Fourth is Leviathan, chaos unbound. Leviathan appears in Job and Psalms as a monstrous sea serpent, the embodiment of chaos. In mythological studies, Leviathan connects to Tiamat in Babylonian myth, or the cosmic dragon of primordial waters. Kabbalah, Leviathan is linked to the Qliphothic shells, the husks of chaos that must be confronted by initiates. Christian mystics later turned Leviathan into a symbol of envy and sin. But the deeper archetype is not just monster. Leviathan is the shadow of creation itself, the wild ocean of chaos that order must continually restrain. Modern parallel. The Leviathan appears in every structure of power. It is the faceless system that swallows individuality, the chaos beneath civilization's surface. To engage with Leviathan is to face the part of existence that cannot be tamed, only acknowledged. Azazel, the scapegoat. In Leviticus, during the Day of Atonement, one goat was sacrificed to God, and another was sent into the wilderness to Azazel. Scholars debate, was Azazel a place, a demon, or a symbolic figure? In mystical interpretation, Azazel becomes the archetype of a scapegoat, the one burdened with collective sins and cast out. Later texts, including the Book of Enoch, describe him as a fallen angel who taught humanity weaponry and cosmetics, tools of war and vanity. Modern parallel. Azazel is every mechanism where societies project their guilt onto someone else. Politically, socially, even psychologically, the scapegoat is how we avoid facing our own shadow. Shekhinah, the exiled feminine. Shekhinah in Kabbalah is the indwelling presence of God, but in exile, Shekhinah becomes the archetype of the divine feminine cast out from unity. She is seen as the bride, separated from her partner, waiting for reunion. Esoterically, Shekhinah is the spark within creation that longs to return to source. She is the hidden presence in suffering, the divine in exile. Parallel, Shekhinah reflects the archetype of fragmented soul, our sense of disconnection from spirit, and the journey to reunite with wholeness. Of Babylon, empire as seduction. In Revelation, Babylon is depicted as a harlot seated on many waters, clothed in purple and scarlet, drunk on the blood of saints. This archetype is not about one woman, but about empire itself as seduction. She represents the allure of wealth, power, and excess. Babylon is civilization when it turns divine gifts into instruments of domination. Modern parallel. The whore of Babylon is consumerism, empire, corporate machinery that promises pleasure but demands your loyalty in return. Serpent offers knowledge, the fruit of the tree. That knowledge breaks innocence but awakens awareness. Mystics debated, was the serpent an enemy or an initiator? In Gnostic texts, the serpent becomes a liberator, freeing humanity from ignorance. Modern parallel. The serpent is the archetype of forbidden awakening. Every time authority tells you not to question, the serpent appears. Beast. Archetype of control. In Revelation, the beast rises from the sea, demanding worship, branding people with a mark. Esoterically, the beast is not about horns or monsters. It's the archetype of totalitarian control. The forehead symbolizes thought. The hand symbolizes action. To receive the mark is to let your beliefs and deeds be shaped by the system. Samael. In Kabbalah, Samael is the angel of severity, sometimes called the angel of death. He is not purely evil, he is necessary. His name means the venom of God. Samael represents judgment without mercy, the force that cuts, restricts, and destroys. Modern parallel. Samael is bureaucracy, law without compassion, the system that crushes in the name of order. Asherah, the forgotten goddess. In the Old Testament, traces of Asherah remain. Poles and groves where she was worshipped alongside Yahweh. Archaeology reveals that many Israelites saw her as God's consort. Later, reductors erased her. Archetype, the repressed feminine divine, the aspect of spirituality that was erased to enforce monotheism. Modern parallel. Asherah is the part of spirituality that resists suppression, the feminine principle that keeps reappearing no matter how much history tries to silence it. Nebuchadnezzar, the fallen king. The Babylonian king who destroyed Jerusalem and exiled Israel is remembered as tyrant, but in Daniel he also dreams, goes mad, lives like an animal, and is later restored. He is the archetype of hubris brought low. Modern parallel. Every leader who loses touch with humility and collapses into madness echoes Nebuchadnezzar archetype. Balaam, the corrupted prophet. Balaam is hired to curse Israel but ends up blessing them. Later texts accuse him of leading people into idolatry. He is the archetype of prophet who sells his gift. Modern parallel. Balaam is every spiritual teacher who trades truth for influence, every mystic who compromises their gift for power. Delilah, the power of betrayal. Samson's downfall comes through Delilah, who cuts his hair, his symbol of strength. She is the archetype of betrayal disguised as intimacy. Modern parallel. Delilah is not just a woman. She is the moment when our vulnerability is turned against us. Jezebel, the voice of defiance. Jezebel is remembered as a wicked queen who opposed Israel's prophets, but archetypally she represents defiance of patriarchal order, devotion to fertility cults, and the disruptive force of power. Modern parallel. Jezebel is invoked today against women who refuse to conform. She is the archetype of dangerous feminine that terrifies authority. The tested one. Job is unique, righteous, yet afflicted by suffering. He becomes the archetype of a human who suffers not for guilt but as a cosmic test. His story unsettles moral order. Modern parallel. Job is every soul who suffers innocently, forcing us to ask, is suffering punishment or initiation? Next is Abaddon, the destroyer. In Revelation, Abaddon leads locusts from the abyss. His name means destruction, but in mystical texts he is not simply evil. He is the necessary force that clears the old to make way for the new. Modern parallel. Abaddon is revolution itself, the archetype of collapse before rebirth. The Witch of Endor, forbidden medium. She summons Samael's spirit for King Saul. Archetypally, she is the keeper of forbidden contact between worlds, the female medium outlawed yet sought after. Modern parallel. The Witch of Endor is every suppressed healer, condemned publicly but sought in secret. Archetypes from Lilith to Beast, from Jezebel to Abaddon, from the Witch of Endor to the Tower of Babel. Each one is not just a story but a mirror. They show us rebellion, envy, forbidden wisdom, betrayal, a tyranny, false prophecy. They also show us endurance, awakening, and the cost of freedom. The forbidden archetypes of the Bible remind us that scripture was never meant to be safe. It was written in blood, exile, ecstasy, and terror. And the real power is not whether these archetypes existed as literal figures. It is whether we recognize them today in our politics, in our systems, and in ourselves.